our engagement with this organization. This would indicate to you the extent of our commitment and the extent of our engagement with this organization. India has actively participated in various SCO mechanisms under Kyrgyz chair over the last 1 year. The organization, for reference purposes, I mentioned, works on the basis of consensus. Typically, the summit settings are meant to discuss the global security situation, multilateral economic cooperation, people-to-people exchanges, and other topical issues. I won't go into the list of members, but 8 countries, including India, are members of SCO. You are also familiar with the concept of observers. There are 4 observers, dialogue partners, and there are others also who attend the SCO meetings, the SCO Secretary General, the Executive Director of the Tashkent-based RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure. In terms of the typical summit format, is I can brief you, give an overview. There's a moment where there's a group photograph, Council of Heads of State meet in a restricted format, delegation level meeting with the participation of observer states, signing of agreed documents, again a group photograph where the observer countries are also there, and an official lunch. So it's a very compact program on the 14th. In this format, we will be discussing the various issues of concern. Prime Minister, when he participates, when he makes his interventions, he will reflect the Indian concerns and priorities with respect to the SCO process. I mentioned to you about contact group on Afghanistan. There have been several activities, so let me just mention a few of them. And the last meeting of the contact group took place in Bishkek from 18 to 19 April. The RATS, that is a very, very important body with which exchange of information takes place, cooperation on anti-terrorist activities. From our side, NSCS is the nodal agency. Defense is also an important part of the SCO process. Only recently, Raksha Mantri attended a meeting of SCO defense ministers in Bishkek on 29-30 April 2019. There are some defense-related activities also to take place in September 2019 and later on in the year as well. I should add at this stage that while we have given you an overview of the format of the SCO meetings, there is indeed scope for bilateral meetings, and we're happy to confirm bilateral meetings with Russia and China as taking place on the margins of the SCO summit. There will be, and there are other requests also. These tend to be processed, taking into account the limited time available. I will also go on to mention that this is a very special visit because there is a bilateral component also. On 14th of June in the late afternoon will be the India-Kyrgyzstan bilateral segment. Overall, we have a very, very active bilateral engagement with the Kyrgyz Republic. It may be recalled that in India, Central Asia Dialogue had been held in January 2019 in Samarkand, and several initiatives were planned within this framework. Kyrgyzstan is also a member of this dialogue. One thing we could say here that there is strong consensus within Central Asia on stronger engagement with India. So we do engage with the Central Asian states collectively and also on a bilateral basis. As far as Kyrgyzstan is concerned in terms of bilateral relations, it may be recalled that Kyrgyz president had recently attended Prime Minister's swearing-in ceremony on 30 May 2019. Of course, this was in his capacity as SCO chairperson, but this was the case of the only Central Asian country to be present at the swearing-in ceremony. But it is not a one-off kind of event. It's really a very, very active relationship. If you see in the recent period, the India-Kyrgyz Joint Commission had met in November 2018, chaired by our Commerce Minister and Kyrgyz Health Minister. Kyrgyz Foreign Minister visited India in January 2019. There was a visit at External Affairs Minister level to the SCO meeting on 21-22 May 2019, where again there was, on the eve of the counting, in fact, election counting, where again there was scope for bilateral engagement. The Foreign Office consultations, the 10th round of Foreign Office consultations, I chaired it actually on the Indian side, held in Bishkek in April 2019. If you go back a little further, Prime Minister Modi had made a landmark visit to Central Asia in 2015, where he also visited the Kyrgyz Republic, and Kyrgyz President, the former President Almazbek Atambayev, had visited India in December 2016. So if we take this snapshot into account, it's been a very, very active relationship with Kyrgyz Republic. It is a country of about 6 million people. There are certain challenges in developing economic relations with Central Asian countries, primarily on account of them being landlocked, but we attach the highest importance to all aspects of our relationship, including the commercial and economic aspects, and we look at ways in which we can address problems of connectivity in particular. Bilateral trade with Kyrgyzstan was about $60 million US in 2017-2018. So that's the scale of the economic engagement. We have almost 8,000 Indian students in Kyrgyz Republic. So that's something which often doesn't attract enough attention, but there is a kind of educational angle also to our bilateral relationship with Kyrgyz Republic. About 100 Indian nationals. The bilateral meeting, again, since I gave you a snapshot of the format, the SCO summit will follow. Again, the bilateral summit will follow the similar kind of formats that's usual for bilateral. The restricted format, delegation level, and documents, and perhaps a banquet. I should just draw your attention to the possibility of a business summit involving FICCI and its counterpart Kyrgyz organization on the same day, on 14th, and on the 13th we are working on an India-Kyrgyz textiles exhibition on the theme Colors and Weaves of India and Central Asia. This is an exhibition which brings together textile traditions of our two countries, and you know that there are several similarities which get highlighted in such joint displays between India and the Central Asian countries. So Kyrgyz Republic and India will put their exhibits together at this exhibition. Almost 100 Indian exhibits will be on display, and this is being organized by Ministry of Textiles and Export Promotion Council for Handicraft. So this really is where we are in terms of the preparations and the forthcoming visit of Prime Minister to Bishkek.
Thank you, sir. I now open the floor to questions. Ji Venkaji.
Is there a possibility of a summit of RIC, Russia, India and China, while the PM is there? And you said you have also requested several requests for bilateral meetings with the Indian Prime Minister. Is there one from Pakistan? Thank you.
Pakistan has already been answered earlier, but other question Secretary will answer. Parikshit. Sir, Parikshit.
So will trade issues arising out of US sanctions be discussed during those bilateral meetings with President Xi and President Putin? You also said that there will be some defense-related developments later in the year with regard to SCO. What would that be? And if you can just talk about the discussion on trade, connectivity and investments at the SCO summit?
Well, I've already mentioned that the meetings which are set up on the sidelines of the SCO summit, and we have a bilateral engagement with Russia and we have a bilateral engagement with China. I also mentioned that there was a limit as far as the available time is there. So the other requests for bilateral and meetings that will be processed as we go along if there is opportunity. So I would leave it at that. As far as you mentioned about trade and defense, the SCO meetings, the interventions are very free and frank, and every country does highlight issues of greater importance to it. So one can expect that the participating leaders will highlight all the concerns that are uppermost in their minds. So I'm sure as I mentioned, that multilateral economic engagement and the current global scenario, these are things which would also be kind of uppermost in their minds. So we will leave it at that, because this is up to the leaders of the various countries to highlight specific aspects and bring out specific angles. But it is a very friendly and friendly gathering. There are no kind of serious most of the outcome documents and all negotiated previously on the sidelines and usually in advance, so they reflect consensus.
No, Parikshit, in fact, if I may suggest that let us not get into this speculative question as to what will be discussed. Once the meetings take place, I assure you that there will be briefings, releases, where we will inform you about the outcome of those meetings. So let us not get into that now. Pranay?
Sir, is there any request from the Iranian side for a bilateral meeting?
I would say that we have more than one request, and we have, and it all depends on the possibility of finding time. It's a very kind of very intensive program of Prime Minister in that place. So I again would repeat the same thing, that what we have confirmed, that we can let you know.
Yeah. Yes.
You said that, given the framework, you will still try to push for issues that are India's priorities in SCO. Could you explain that? And you also said that there are two bilaterals which are already decided. Typically, how long are such pull-out bilaterals, and what is going to be discussed in them? Is it like just organic, or are they also decided in advance? Just an idea of what happens at these pull-outs.
You see, when we have confirmed two bilateral meetings, then we have not said that these are pull-aside meetings. These are proper bilateral meetings. The agenda and the topic, as I mentioned, of discussion is not something which we will share now. Of course, the bilateral relations will be discussed, but normally after the meeting is over, then we will make sure that the outcome of such meetings are communicated to you as early as possible. Yeah, Suhasini. Just hold on. The main points for the SCO, how India, sir, SCO mein how we are planning to put across our points of view.
I think there I would like to draw your attention that to the way we approach SCO, that it provides us a framework where we can engage with the Central Asian countries in particular